Hi, and welcome to the $1,000,000 Event Podcast. This is the space for event leaders to be able to elevate their event experiences, get inspired by their events, by their community, and then connect deeper with their community, audience, clients, whoever you're building this retreat for. Hi, my name is Jami Johnson. I am a retreat leader. I am a conference girly, and I have been planning events since 2017. Oh my gosh. This is episode 1 of the $1,000,000 Event Podcast. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, about my story, my journey, and how I even got into this mess. Oh my gosh, where do I start? My love for events started in 2010. Now, actually, I'm going to circle back to that. I have an accounting degree. I went to school for accounting, and it was my senior year where I wanted to quit, drop out, and go into hospitality because my friend Janelle was traveling the world on cruises, working at Marriott's in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I was like, I want to be doing that and not accounting. My dad said no. I was very fortunate that my parents paid for my college, so I couldn't, study abroad. I had to follow their rules. And I just bit my tongue because I was like, okay, I'll figure out a way. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to travel. Fast forward to I graduated in 2009. I got my first big girl job as a tax auditor in the state of Kentucky, and I went to my very first conference in 2010 where I met my mentor, Cindy Anders, and she started as an auditor for Montana and then retired and then became this event planner, self-taught, and she'd been doing it for 25 years. And I was like, okay, so this is a skill that is like figure outable, that you could go from 0 to nothing and be excellent at it. It was almost like when she was telling me about her life story, I inside of my bones, everything in my being said, this is what you're meant to do. Figure out how to do it. I continued doing tax auditing because, the recession, and I needed a job. But then I got involved in local organizations like Downtown Frankfurt Inc., which was the local community organization that planned all of the community events like the summer concert series, which every other weekend, all summer long, they have live music downtown, outside of the old Capitol. They planned this thing called the Candlelight a walk or candlelight something. Anyway, for 2 weeks, the downtown was lit up by candles, like little tea tree candles, and all of the businesses stayed open late, and you kind of walked around. It was like a way to do some Christmas shopping, and it's like a niche community event that everyone loved year after year. Another one of the events that they started was called the Bourbon Gala, or the Great Bourbon Gala, which Frankfort, Kentucky is the epicenter for bourbon because there's over 60, I think, distilleries within a 30-mile radius of Frankfort. Buffalo Trace is there. Woodford Reserve is on the outskirts. Castle and Key. There's so many amazing bourbons that are just centralized to Frankfort. So they started to host this Great Bourbon Gala. And so I was sure to work my way into that and planning that event. I really joined these organizations where I could figure out what I wanted to do. I could try out different events because I wasn't sure. I knew I wanted to plan events, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to plan weddings or corporate events or I didn't know what I wanted. So I was like, you know what? Let's get my feet wet. Let's see if I can articulate how to plan events or learn how to do it that way. I also joined the Lexington Young Professionals Association where they had monthly, I think, networking. And then they also had membership celebrations. I started to get involved in that organization as well. I worked my way up to the membership chair, so I got to plan some of these events alongside of my counterparts, which was awesome because I got a little bit deeper into the Lexington, Kentucky community, which is a bigger city than Frankfort. And I got to take on a more leadership role in planning these community-driven events. I liked it. Around that time, I got a new job in a corporate setting. So I worked from home. I was traveling a lot, and leading these community-wide, like, year-long projects was no longer an option for me. So I started to set out and try things like baby showers, bachelorette parties, and weddings. And I learned very quickly through this experience that I'm very bad at planning baby showers because I don't have any kids myself, and I wanted to do fun things like have a knocked up party where, the first one to have like little tiny babies and ice cubes, and the ice cube breaks, and you have the baby in your glass, like they win a drink. And I wanted to have like a cake with the baby being birthed. And I thought these things were really funny, but the people around me didn't think that they were funny, like having tossed the baby pong and like things like that. So I quickly learned that I wasn't the right person for that style of event. And then I tried my hand at weddings, and I realized that anytime that someone could chew me out over a hydrangea wilting in the middle of July in humid, hot Kentucky, that it just wasn't something for me, because the events that people take so personally, the weddings and funerals, they're high stress and they want everything to be perfect because it's like their one day. And no event is ever perfect. And it just was not fun for me. And I applaud anyone who thinks that is fun, because we need those people in the world. Weddings are a lot. But I did really, really thrive when I planned honeymoons. The stakes were a little bit lower. People were coming off of their wedding on this exhilarated high. So, like, literally, I could do whatever I wanted. And it really tied in my love of travel and planning. I quickly realized once I became a travel agent and I did the steps to be able to plan travel and like a certified travel associate, that travel agency was a volume game. And I didn't have the capacity, nor did I want to have like hundreds of clients at a time in order to replace my full-time income. So I saw planning travel as more of like a side hustle or a hobby, or like things I did for friends and family, and not necessarily something that I wanted to do for my job, because I like to plan my own travel, but I didn't really like to plan other people's travel that much. It gave me a lot of stress, especially around flights. And it just wasn't quite right. But like it was closer, but it wasn't quite right. So fast forward to 2017, 2018, I hired my first business coach because I realized that my corporate job was not it. And I just did not want to have to find another corporate job. Like, I really just wanted to be able to plan whatever I wanted. And so I hired my first business coach, and she looked at me. She was a mindset coach, because I was like, I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And I thought my problem is I didn't believe in myself, which it kind of was my problem, but it wasn't necessarily the biggest problem, but I didn't know that at the time. When we were developing what I wanted to do, because that was one of the first questions, is like, what kind of events do you want to plan? And I was like, I would love to plan trips around the world for women who are nervous to get out of the United States or out of their home country and travel, because the biggest part of me being a human and me being who I am today is when I was stuck in a foreign country without a cell phone, with a backpack. Sometimes I had friends and sometimes I didn't have friends. And having to interact with the locals and ask people for help, and getting lost in cities, which then turned into magical adventures. And those were the biggest moments of transformation for myself in my personal life. It really taught me resiliency. Like the fact that I know I can read a map, like a paper map. When so many people rely on Google Maps and their phone, I chose to rely on a paper map and get lost and then find my way out. And those types of skill sets, I think, are overlooked nowadays. But I felt so hyped up about myself every time I came home, or even in the little moments like, oh, I found my way back to my hotel without needing my phone. I celebrated those tiny moments of like, I can learn new things and I can like figure it out. And I'm so resilient. I am successful. Whatever I put energy to, I'm going to be successful at. And those are types of like internal skills that I needed to be successful. And then when she looked at me, she was like, well, why don't you just plan retreats? I was like, what the heck is a retreat? I knew what a conference was, but what the heck is a retreat? And she was like, oh, well, these online communities, these online coaches host these international events that have like 15 people in them, and I'm sure someone needs to plan them for them. So how about you just do that? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I've never been on a retreat. I don't know what a retreat is. That just made me feel really nervous. So I kind of took it in, started talking to it, and it didn't know what I was saying, but like I was trying to talk with conviction and confidence. And there was even a podcast episode back in that time that with my then coach that she interviewed me, and some of my answers, I listened to it now. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. It needs to be taken down. Like, I don't even sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I didn't. I never hosted a retreat before, never planned a retreat before, but I planned plenty of vacations and all these other events. Like, how hard could it be? So of course I would love planning retreats. And around that time, it was 2017, my mentor, Cindy from, 2010, came back into my life and was like, hey, if I had to do this over, like, you don't want my job, but if I had to do this over, I would do third-party planning. And I was like, I don't even know what's a third-party planner. Heck yes, side hustle, let's go. So she explained to me a third-party planner is someone who would go in, create requests for proposal, RFPs, and for her conferences, push them out with a software to hotels, and the hotels would then bid to host like her meetings. And I was like, oh, so I would do everything from like RFP creation through contract signature, and then my job was done. I would get paid anywhere from 7 to 12% of the sleeping room pickup rate with a convoluted equation. And you know what? That turned into a pretty lucrative side hustle for a hot second. Like 2018, I did this and I was making like $28,000 a year, working like less than 40 hours for all of that. And I was like, holy shit. Okay, well, how can I get more of these? Because I can quit my day job with this. If I just landed another client, like I could totally do this. It's so simple. And I was really good at it. I was really good at evaluating hotels and photos. And, I went the extra mile. I'd go into TripAdvisor and Google, and I would find traveler photos, because sometimes hotels catfish you, where their photos are from the renovation in 2012 and it's now 2024, and the hotel just looks completely different and has a little funny smell that you wouldn't necessarily know until you read the reviews or visit it in person. So I dove into that January 1st, 2020. I had decided I had enough runway saved up from my third-party side hustle that I was going to go all in on retreat and event planning. Like, I was going to figure out how to have a business planning these events, because I was no longer satisfied. I was crying. I was stressed. I was panic attacking over my current corporate job. And I was like, you know what? I have enough money saved right now that I have a year to figure it out, which made me feel really, really good. I had a partner, my now husband, was very supportive of this. And he was like, you got this. You're going to figure it out. It's going to be great. And then in March, everything shut down. All of my revenue streams shut down. All my events were postponed. I was no longer able to get paid. I was no longer able to collect a paycheck, because if these events didn't happen, then I didn't get paid a commission, third-party planning. And so my income stream was now like no longer, which really devastated me. And we didn't really know what was going to happen. So I did not quit my corporate job until January 2022. When the world opened back up and people started to have meetings again, and my client would resume her meetings, and I knew that I was going to have more of a shot because more people were hosting and going, and things felt a little bit more comfortable in the travel space. In between like March 2020 and January 2022, I went hard marketing retreat, like hard. I still didn't know what the heck I was talking about, but I had a vision and I knew what I wanted to create. I kind of knew who I wanted to create it for, but I had a vision of what I was going to be creating, and I just went hard on Instagram. And one day, I don't even remember what day it was, a person I used to be really good friends with in middle school messaged me saying, hey, I work for the honeypot company. You plan retreats, right? And I was like, yeah, I plan retreats. Again, my niche was coaching online coaches. And she was like, well, what about corporate retreats? And I was like, of course I do. No, I had never planned a retreat before, but of course I plan retreats. I put together a presentation. I had a meeting with their president, Allie. And if you guys don't know, it's the honeypot company, the all-natural feminine care company, founded by B. Dixon. They're pretty big deal. Last January, B sold the company to Coda for like $340 million or something insane. I met with Allie and we said, okay, so they hired me on the spot. $25,000. I about shit my pants. I was like, oh my gosh, if I just could get like one more client like this, between that and my third party planning, I can quit my day job and everything's going to be fine. I ended up planning a 36-person company retreat because that's how big their company was at that moment. And I think 12 or so people were brand new to the company when we hosted in Costa Rica at the end of September in 2021. We did the dang thing. I was so proud of myself. I cried too many times of happy tears of like, I just knew in my bones that this was what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. There was no going back. And at that retreat, I came home and I looked at Micah, my husband, now, not my husband. And I was like, I have to quit. So I made the decision to quit and I started to lay the groundwork to quit January 1st. I can make it 2 more months. No big deal. Quit my job. Went all in. Put purple in my hair. Got some tattoos. The honeypot signed me for 6 more retreats in 2022. My boyfriend at the time proposed to me in March. We went to Asia for 5 months, and it was an incredible year. I still wasn't making the money I wanted to be making, but the honeypot saw value in me. They asked me to come back over and over and over again. They proved to myself that I could do it. It proved that I could get clients. It proved that corporations did have a need for this. It proved that so much to me that this is where I wanted to be. And so that is how I started retreat planning and conference planning. And this is kind of how I made it here. In 2024, I ended up taking over event coordination for my mentor, Cindy Anders, with her company. It is a contract position. I still own, they contract with my event planning company. And then I planned 6 retreats in 2024 for online coaches and creators. One of my clients, Alexis, made $180,000 from her retreat in gross revenue from 3 retreats. We went to Hawaii, Dubai, and Mykonos. And then with my conference planning client, they did close to $800,000, I believe, in gross revenue from the events, the conferences that they planned as well. So between the 2 of them, it's so easy to have $1 million event strategy. Now, they are 2 different clients with 2 different goals when it comes to earning money. But I've witnessed firsthand in different capacities, also with my current mentor, how lucrative events are, not only for your bank account, but for your soul and for your community and for sisterhood and for all the things that we feel that we're lacking as an entrepreneur. There's such a market to have these close, intimate retreats that you get direct access, like hours and hours of access to a coach. And then you go to these conferences where you go really wide. You get exposure to coaches you've never heard of before, to speakers you never heard of before. You get inspired by different words and different things. And you meet other people that you wouldn't have necessarily met before. You have taken your Instagram community and put them in the same room. And now you're friends with 25 to 35% of that room that can carry on later. And as an entrepreneur, getting in those rooms, it's super important because I know that I connected with at least 50 people at a 400-person event that will one day host a retreat or a conference. I know that as long as I'm visible and I show up and I deliver value, that they're going to want to hire me. Not only am I good at what I do, they know who I am, which is a double whammy. It's exactly where I need to be positioned. So as an entrepreneur, as an online coach, when you think about where you're going with your community, you should really consider how are you going to get out of the Zoom room and into intimate spaces for client retention to connect deeper with your audience. Because honestly, whether you like retreats or like conferences or want to do both, but you're crawling instead of running right now, getting out of the Zoom room and in person will quantum leap your business. It will 100 times your business. It did with Alexis. It has with my other client as well. And what's really important here is even if you only host 1 retreat a year, 10 people, charge high ticket, you get to serve on a deeper level. You get to connect deeper with them. And honestly, what ends up happening is then you're now inspired for your next course, product, service, one-on-one. You might take on one-on-one clients. Maybe going to the retreat is your barrier to enter your one-on-one atmosphere, elevating all of your other services and your ticket prices because now they get closer proximity to you. Conversely, hosting a conference, you get access, or you can call on all the speakers to invite their own communities. And then you're just one big melting pot of clients, of other Instagram people, other people that you wouldn't have necessarily had exposure to, growing your online business that way. Now, let me just tell you, my mentor, she closed $800,000 from the stage at that conference. $1,000. She had $1 million month. She had an $800,000 week. And that's the power of hosting in-person events. If you found value in this, I'm so excited that you're here. I am a little nervous for this podcast, but I know it's needed and necessary, and it's been on my heart for a while. And now I'm just carpe diem the fuck out of life of 2025, and we are going to that next level. I am stepping out from behind the curtain and elevating with you in 2025 to host your dream retreat, to host your conferences, and to create the $1 million event strategy for your coaching business. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this podcast, share it on your Instagram story, and tag me Retreats with Jami J, because I would love to not only hear from you and what most resonated with my story, but also I want to know who you are. So once you tag me, I'll be sure to follow you and share my story as well. See you on the next one.